slightly different titles of the same content, really. I know it's the last session of this long process, so I understand that we're all tired. I'll try and be as clear and as simple as I can be. And then also the chair has threatened to have some violent action if I overshoot my time, so I'll better be disciplined. I want to talk about financialized capitalism. I want to give you a particular take on what financialization is. Some of you might be already aware of it from discussions we've had in Sibila before, or from other things that have taken place at this conference. Some of you who've been to talks I've given before will have noticed the difference. In the past, I've called this financial exploitation. I now think that expropriation is a better term, though phonetically not much better. It's a better term because, not because I don't think it's exploitative what takes place. No, I think what happens is exploitative. But I think that by using the term expropriation rather than exploitation, we can distinguish more clearly between circulation and production. And the events and processes, the mechanisms that I want to talk about now, and others will subsequently, are really circulation processes. And what we want to convey is that financialization should be understood as a transformation that allows for profit and for other important development to take place, arising to a large extent in the sphere of circulation and also affecting production. Let me push on and see how it comes out. Financialization, the way I'd like to propose it here, is the transformation of capitalism. It's a key aspect of what has been taking place since 1973-74. That's great in the development of capitalism. And it is associated with the transformation of production, of course. It has to do, in the first instance, with changes in the real economy. Whereas these two changes we can summarize, capture very simply the way I put them up there in terms of technological revolution, and it's taken place since the mid-70s, information technology and telecommunications, change in the way, in the forces of production, a dramatic change in the forces of production, and second, institutional and political changes that have taken place gradually, progressively during that period. The most important one is, of course, deregulation, liberalization of labor markets, and of course of financial markets. And this went with political change and ideological change, we all know it, the demise of Keynesianism, the emergence of neoliberal approach to economics and the economic policy. Now this period, characterized by these key underlying changes in the way capitalist accumulation works, present, I think, three key important aspects which are necessary to understand what financialization is. The first is that productivity growth has been problematic. I keep talking about productivity growth, but I'm not having much success in making people see how important it is, because partly there's a bit of an obsession with the rate of profit. The rate of profit is, of course, very, very important, but so is productivity growth. For long-term development of capitalism, productivity growth is paramount importance. And productivity growth, despite the technological change, and despite the institutional and other changes that have taken place, has been very problematic throughout the period. This indicates that the real sector is at work. Productive accumulation has not been breaking new ground. This has not been a dynamic period of capitalist development the last 30 or so years. The interesting exception for a short period of time, and again this is the importance of the current event, was the United States, where in the second half of the 90s, productivity growth surged. And people were talking about the new economy and everything else. So that's gone now. That is gone, it appears to be gone. Productivity growth is back down to the levels of the 80s now, and that is something which happened during this bubble that we've been talking about. This is very important. I haven't got time to go into it, but just mention it here. Second thing that I've makes us understand, I think, financialization is transformation of the process of work, the intensification of labor, the prolongation of labor, the extraction of profit through squeezing labor in production. And the third thing, again I haven't got time to go into it, is the emergence of a global economy dominated by multinationals. This is a process that started in the 60s, of course, but it takes a new poignant, a new assumes additional weight in the decades after 70s and before. Financialization is a transformation of the economy on this basis. It's a transformation of capitalism as a whole on this basis, and it has to do with the expansion of circulation. That these developments benefit circulation and promote growth in circulation as far more than production. It has domestic and global aspects. I will mention the global aspects in the first place, and Juan Pablo will tell you much more about it. The global aspects of financialization have to do, in the first instance, with the absence of a reliable world money. Without that concept, it's very hard to understand what's been happening globally. The dollar has been acting as world money, but it is quasi-world money. It's not world money. It cannot deliver the functions of world money with any, with sufficient efficiency, and it allows for the United States to extract extra profit. Juan Pablo will tell you a lot more about it than I do. Second thing in the global sphere, financialization is about free capital flows, globalization of capital, the lifting of controls on capital, and we've got FDI and portfolio investment. The third thing that happens on the global level is, of course, the emergence of global financial markets in derivatives and other assets, integrated markets, pivoting on London and New York. I haven't got time to go into it. I will move to the domestic productive sector, and I want to look at financialization in terms of, in a sense, the domestic economy and what happens in the interaction between circulation and production. And the thing to stress, the key underlying thing which is very important, is that corporations during the last 2 to 3 decades have become less reliant on banks. I cannot overstress the importance of this. Big business obtains finance today primarily from retained earnings, own profits, and from open markets. As a result, their dependence on banks has become less. I stress this because our classical understanding based on Gilperding and on Lenin about finance capital and monopoly capital is closer, it's a connection between banks and big business. Events have taken place in the last 3 decades which are not of a piece. The third thing that's important is that small and medium enterprises during this period have had difficulty obtaining finance. The answer, if you've been studying finance, will know what I'm talking about. It's the so-called missing middle. Big business can get finance in open markets, can get finance on retained earnings. Small and medium businesses have got problems as financialization has progressed, and of course, small and medium businesses at the moment are getting it in the neck in terms of banks constraining credit and credit becoming more difficult to obtain because they didn't have very much credit in the first place. And small and medium businesses are still the backbone of employment. Hence the current recession will have serious employment implications. Let me give you some sense then of banks becoming more detached from, or less, large corporate capital becoming less reliant on banks. You can see it's very long term, right? Starting in the mid-70s. You can see for the United States, the proportion of bank loans within corporate liabilities goes down. For Germany, less so. Very clearly for Japan, although this period is much less. Japan is important because in Japan the reliance of big business on banks was very, very heavy indeed. And it's become noticeably less. Also note, except for the long-term trend, the difference still between US corporations and German-Japanese corporations. They still rely more on banks. It's the difference between bank-based and market-based financial systems, which you can still see despite the internationalization of the last few years and its implications. This kind of weakening of the reliance of big business on banks is perfectly clear during the bubble of the 2009-2007. Whatever else happened during the last 6 or 7 years, it wasn't big business that had been borrowing money from the banks. This wasn't the period